Beautiful presents Decorating with Slipcovers. Brought to you by Waverly. Today, more than ever, our homes are a statement of who we are and how we live. And the way we decorate our homes is a reflection of our personal style. As our styles evolve, so too can the rooms we live in, thanks in large part to the magic of slipcovers. Slipcovers allow us to change our rooms easily to suit the seasons as well as our moods. They add character, style, and warmth to any setting. Hello, I'm Julia Ireland, and together with House Beautiful magazine and Waverly, we're going to show you how decorating with slipcovers can virtually transform your home. We're going to learn what slipcovers can do to create beautiful rooms, and how they solve decorating problems as well. We will discover how slipcovers can completely change the look, mood, and feeling of a room. We'll find out how choosing the right fabric is so important. And we'll show you tips for slipcovering a club chair. No one knows the potential of slipcovers as well as House Beautiful. And joining us is House Beautiful's editor, Peggy Kennedy. Hello, Peggy.
Hello, Julia.
Why do we say that slipcovers are magic decorating solutions?
Well, they allow you to do so many things, to go from plain to flowery, or perhaps to disguise all the legs in a room.
And what is important to consider in using slipcovers?
You have to think about the mood you want to set, what colors you like, what style you're trying to create, and maybe you're going to change some frumpy piece of furniture into something more wonderful.
I understand that slipcovers have a long history. What was their original function?
Well, form does follow function, and basically they were used to cover up very expensive fabrics when you had a really good damask or silk, and also to change the seasons from velvets to cottons.
All right. Well, let's look back to find out just how slipcovers have evolved in interior design. One of the earliest records of slipcovers was found in an inventory list of furnishings from an English estate dated 1697. Prior to that date, fabric and carpets were used to drape tables, but chairs remained uncovered and stiff. Referred to as loose covers or case covers, slipcovers were seen in the great houses of both Europe and America in the 18th and 19th century. But practical as they were, dust covers could also be decorative. A wonderful example of the decorative use of slipcovers can be seen in this early 1812 watercolor. Here we see the chair sheathed in white cotton with symmetrical rows of ties on the back. The slipcover on the daybed in this painting shows the relaxed, loose slipcovers which resulted from being made at home by each household. During the 19th century, slipcovers were common throughout Europe and America. This painting from 1835 shows an Italian villa decorated for summer guests with pink and white slipcovers. During the Victorian era, slipcovers were used in drawing rooms, bedrooms, and dining rooms. In the late 19th century, the Russian intelligentsia moved to their summer cottages called dachas. There they basked in the brief summer warmth. The heavy furnishings were dressed with white linen slipcovers, which disguised the stuffy winter upholstery. In the American South, slipcovers were a part of a home's summer dress. This Gothic Revival house in Mississippi still puts down straw matting, removes velvet draperies to reveal lace curtains, and covers the chairs with loose slipcovers in muslin, as they did in the 1800s. Loose covers continued to be a force in the decoration, from the most elaborate country estate to the simplest cottage. The editorial pages of House Beautiful showed slipcovers as decorative and functional. Plain and simple in the 1920s, in the 30s, chenille was fashionable, followed by the exuberant, overscaled prints of the 40s. During the 20th century, slipcovers were commonly used by nearly every American decorator, from Elsie de Wolfe to Dorothy Draper to Mario Buada. The always practical Billy Baldwin loved the mix of blue cotton and modern art. The very relaxed and loose striped slipcovers, done by Sister Parrish and Albert Hadley, caused a stir in 1979 when surrounded by high-style rooms in a New York show house. And today, slipcovers are as common as upholstery. Slipcovers certainly have evolved from just being practical to being creative decorating solutions. The choice of fabrics and the style of slipcovers play a key role in determining the look and feel of your room. Let's see how fabrics and style of slipcovers can change a living room. I can see that this room has a balance of simple, quiet fabrics mixed with subtle florals. When decorating with slipcovers, is choice of fabric the first consideration?
Absolutely, it's key. It sets the mood, it sets the tone and the style.
And how do you decide what colors to use in a room? I know everyone asks this, but should we think about what's in style?
No, absolutely not. That's the wrong question to ask. The better question is, what kind of mood do I want? And what color do I like? Legendary decorator Billy Baldwin always said, whatever color you like is in style.
Okay, so why don't we start with the sofa? Now this looks upholstered to me. Is this really a slipcover?
This is a slipcover, but it's without welt so that it kind of creates a soft, rounded look.
And I love this ruffle. Now, how do you choose this kind of detail?
Well, the sofa was the largest piece, and therefore it kind of set the style for the room. So if we wanted to be a little bit romantic, that's where we put the ruffle.
And I notice this is the only piece in the room with a ruffle.
Yes, so that it wouldn't get too fussy or too frilly.
I see. Now, florals next to paisley. I never would have thought of this. It's beautiful. How do you choose this?
Well, the floral on the sofa is kind of monochromatic. The tones kind of blend together. And the paisley has that same kind of feeling. And all of the colors are in the same range. So that's why it works. This paisley is also covering up a more formal chair.
My word.
So what it does is, in addition to making it more relaxed and less formal, it creates a softer silhouette. The profile is easy, relaxed.
Yeah. And yeah, I was just going to say fitted, but a more relaxed style.
Right.
Now, we go over here, and with this treatment, you've gone to lighter, more neutral shades.
Well, it's almost a reverse of what we did on the sofa. There it was red, and the pillows were beige and white striped. Here it's kind of beige, and there's a little bit of red in the Jacobean print. And if you think about it, the pillows are kind of a blown-up version of the stripe.
They are.
And then you can do something different by mitering the stripe. It's the same exact stripe, but cut on a triangle and sewn together to create a totally different fabric.
Now, is this a slipcover as well?
Yes, it is. And it's great
is.
because for a day bed, you can just take that off and put sheets on for your guest, and it just makes a nice...
And this time you've got the welting.
Yes.
Okay. And here too. Now, you know, when I first saw this chair, I thought it was a solid.
Well, it's so subtle, it almost looks like a solid, but that's what makes the whole room work together. And this is covering a classic English club chair with tufting and nail heads in leather.
Incredible.
So with a chair like this, what you have to remember is to be sure and leave lots of extra fabric to tuck in, because this anchors it. You know, you don't have a seat cushion and you don't have a back cushion, and that holds the chair in place so that it doesn't slip around when you're sitting on it.
Now tell me, Peggy, do you think this is something that I could undertake?
Julia, I think you could do this. It's got a few seams. Maybe you'd want to skip the welts. You might have trouble with this beautiful invisible zipper, but if it intimidated you, you could just use Velcro. I mean, there's always that possibility.
Here the choice of fabric is a bold denim stripe. This is quite a departure from the other fabrics in the room.
Well, it is and it isn't, because the same colors in this stripe were in the Jacobean print on the daybed. They're just used in a stronger way here to hold their own at this end of the room.
And we have a new treatment for the slipcovers?
Yes, this is a nice double pleat at the corner, which is a classic treatment for a club chair.
And a new pocket?
Great place to tuck your magazines.
Very clever idea. Great use of space. Now, in keeping with the stripes, we have the side chair. And again, the vertical stripe with a different treatment on the side.
Right. What we did was we cut out this main stripe and applied it horizontally around the chair to imitate a much more expensive trim.
And you've got a little bit of a surprise in the back?
Yes, it's our button-down bag. It's just another way of doing slipcovers. You could do ties and zippers and buttons. Why not?
And we've got all the variation here, so that you've shown us in this room how we can mix and match all different types of fabrics, stripes, solids, paisleys, florals. But for most of us, what's overwhelming is how to coordinate all of this.
Well, basically you have to let color be your guide. And once you've chosen your main fabric, for instance on the sofa, then you use that to play off all the other fabrics and colors.
It makes perfect sense. Later, we're going to come back to this living room to see how slipcovers can create a completely different look. You may not recognize it. But now we're going to take you where the whole process begins, the fabric store, and we're going to learn some practical ideas about how to choose fabric.
Hi, I'm Meri Stevens, president of Waverly. I'm here at my local fabric store to talk to you about fabrics and about decorating. You know, I'm a ripper and a clipper. I love magazines, and what I always do when I start a new decorating project is I go to my box that I've had for years, and in it I've got all kinds of clippings from magazines. I've got things done by rooms. I've got ideas for color. And after I've gone through here to get ideas about what I might want to do, I then have another little trick, and I've kept this actually for years. This is my house idea file. It's just a regular accordion file, but what I've done is I've divided it all out by each room in the house and kept swatches of all the different things, the papers and fabrics and carpet things in each room, plus lots of other little receipts and catalogs. And this I really couldn't live without when I'm doing a decorating project. What we're going to do today is we're going to actually take you through a decorating process that I would go through in finding some slipcover fabric for a pair of chairs in my family room. So I would go to my family room file and look what I would have in there. I would have actually all the bits and pieces that are in that room: the wall covering, the carpet sample, my draperies, the upholstery. But as you look at these swatches and these little clippings that I've saved and stuffed in my idea file, what is really the coordinator of them all? The coordinator of them all is color. Color sets up any room. So what we've done is we've laid out our room and we've chosen our fabric. What we want to talk about now is, why have we chosen this particular kind of fabric? You know, choosing fabric's like having common sense. You're going to, first of all, pick something you really love. If you choose something you really love, you'll always respond to it. Second of all, you're going to marry the fabric with the use that it's going to be used for. In this case, my pair of chairs are not going to get a lot of use. They're going to be more decorative in the room. I can use something with a lighter background. I wanted something with a sort of a perky hand, because I was planning on putting a ruffle around that slipcover. So when we talk about hand of fabric, what do we mean? We mean how it feels to the touch, how it responds to pleating, or how it responds to ruffling. But the most important thing to think about is that no fabric stands alone. You want your house to have a flow. And in this case, I go back into my file, and in the hall leading to this room, I've got the swatch of the wall covering and a little bench done in this wonderful upholstery flame stitch. Now that's a little bit heavier, and that's upholstered on a bench. That fabric might be a little bit too heavy to upholster with, to slipcover with, just because of the weight of it. And when we talk about color being our coordinator, that hall leading into that room is a perfect setup for the colors in the room. And off my little den, I have a powder room. That powder room, again keeping all my swatches of wall covering, borders, and fabric, picks up the red and white feeling in the room. But you can see, just from all these swatches, that everything holds together. Everything lays in nicely. And you use your print as your coordinator. Now, oftentimes, people ask me, you know, decorating is so confusing. How do I start? And I really have a standard answer that I use, and that answer is choose a statement print and build your room around it. In my case, I had a lot of things in the room and I was looking for the print afterwards. But if I were starting a room from scratch, I would pick a print, quality again, but something that I loved, like this print, and I would let this fabric be my roadmap to making my decorating decisions. I would pull out a color for walls, pull out another color for carpeting. See that little beige in there? I'd go right into the print, and I happen to like pinks and reds, pull out a color for upholstery and draperies, again letting color be my coordinator, and then add a little personality to the room with a little tartan plaid that picks up the red, the blue, and the green. Another thing I recommend is to always save a large piece of fabric or even a yard of fabric, because there's a lot of very valuable information, not just the information in terms of the colors in a print, but the information that we see on the salvage of a fabric. You'll notice on a piece of fabric, what's on the outside edge of each of your fabrics is something we call the salvage, and there's a story printed on that salvage. The part that I've chosen to keep for my file is important because what it does, it says that Waverly is the person who made that fabric. The name of that fabric is Pleasant Valley. And I can always call my local store and say, do you have any Waverly Pleasant Valley fabric? Another very interesting little piece of information. This is the color bar, and each one of those circles represent a color that's used in the print of the fabric. So when you were going in to pull out colors that you might use for walls or carpet or accessories or upholstery or wall covering, all those different 12 colors that are in this print are in that salvage bar. So it's important when you finished your project to put away into your idea file a piece of fabric that has that salvage story on it so that you can come back to Waverly in 2 months or 2 years or 12 years and still find something that will go with what you already own. In closing, I'd like you just to remember that with slipcovers particularly, everything old can be new again.
We are back in the living room, and it is really hard to believe it's the same room we were in before. And here to tell us about this incredible transformation is Sarah Kaltman, senior editor of House Beautiful. Sarah, this is phenomenal. How would you describe the style of this room now?
This is a much more clean, monochromatic version of the same room, paler colors and fabrics.
It's absolutely stunning. How did you coordinate the style of the slipcover with the choice of fabric?
Well, there's really no hard and fast rules. On the sofa, there's a much simpler slipcover to go with a simpler fabric, and on the chairs here, there's a more ornate fabric and a more ornate slipcover with a ruffled skirt.
And you've swapped the ruffle with the more tailored type of treatment here on the sofa. How did you decide on that?
Well, the cleaner sofa here makes a total mood change for the room. It also provides the only solid in a room full of patterns, which is important for the serenity of the environment.
Now, you called this a solid. Again, I would have said, when I first saw it, it looked like a solid, but it's really a stripe in the fabric, so you've carried the stripes through again.
In a very subtle way, yes. This is a woven stripe, and it's a more subtle stripe than a printed stripe, which you saw in the earlier version of the red club chair, which is a printed red on red stripe.
And would you call this, what would you call the style of this sofa now?
This is a more modern styling of the same sofa. It's a very classic shape. It provides a modern note in essentially traditional room. It has a very tailored slipcover. It's close to the body with grommets as the closure at the corners, which is a more modern feeling touch.
And you see, you call this a contemporary type of sofa, yet the feel I get in the room still is very traditional.
It is, because this print is very strong, and the treatment of it, as well as the print, are very traditional. So they balance each other and make an overall feel to the room.
Now, in that same vein with traditional, these French chairs are very racy as far as I'm concerned. This would be very daring for me to go with something like this, yet I've always been dying to. How did you decide on this?
Well, we decided to have a bit of fun with this. The leopard print is whimsical, and we felt that everything in this room was fairly serious. The stripes are austere, this is very traditional and quiet, and this just adds a note of fun. Also, it's a wonderful contrast to these French-style armchairs, which are antique and serious and all.
Oh, it's stunning, and what a transformation from the paisley, and we can really see so much more of the chair.
Right.
Now, I want to take your attention over here just for a sec to the day bed. Completely different look.
Completely different look. What's interesting is that the pillows stayed the same from the winter version to the summer version. All we had to do to make this look lighter and more summery was to cover it, the mattress, in the stripe. Totally changes the feel.
It does. So now we've got stripes, florals, print, solids. How did you make this all work in the same room?
The key to making all of these different patterns work together is to keep the palette limited. There's basically 3 colors in this room, and because of the limited monochromatic palette, the patterns become textural rather than loud patterns.
And is this easier to live with for a longer period of time?
That really depends on the person. Some people adore a mix of patterns, some people adore everything solid. It really is who you are. What makes it easy is because it's all slip covered, if you change just one element like the sofa or these chairs, the whole feel would change and be adaptable to another environment.
And you can change the whole look of the room, as we've seen with this transformation. So we talked a lot about style. What exactly is style? How do we define style? What would my style be?
Your style is really what you want. You have to think about the look you're after. If you're after something traditional, if you're after something romantic, if you want something modern, and then you go after that with the detailing, with the fine-tuning of a fabric choice.
And it takes off all that pressure of what's in, what the right colors are, but we choose what we like, and then we've got this kind of flexibility with the magic of slipcovers.
Exactly.
Thank you, Sarah. This is remarkable. And as we've seen, the key to achieving the style you want is in the selection of fabrics, the colors, and the slipcover styles. Now let's see how we can use slipcovers in the bedroom. A bedroom typically has very little furniture, and so the challenge is to choose the right fabrics to create the mood you want. Dara Caponegro, a senior editor with House Beautiful, is here to show us how slipcovers were used to create 2 versions of the same bedroom. Dara, this room has a wonderful, cozy feeling to it. How did you create that?
Well, we created it by using lots of plaids and checks and stripes, mostly in green, and we wanted the room to have sort of a rustic, wintry look, and the green mixed with red evokes that mood.
How did you unify the different fabrics? What were the key elements?
Well, we repeated fabrics often. For example, we used this wonderful green and white stripe, again on the bed skirt, and then we used the green and white check on the duvet cover, on the screen, and on the little desk chair.
And about the plaids, the footstool?
Well, the footstool is a wonderful fabric. It is, we did not patch that together. It comes just that way. And because it's sort of an elaborate pattern, we chose to do a very simple slip cover.
The chaise, I noticed, has a very unique pattern.
Yeah, it's really fun. We used Waverly's denim, which is very sturdy, and we used 2 solid patterns. And to create some interest, we cut a pattern out of the white, and then we top stitched it onto the green.
So they're both denim, and it's got this great cozy feel to it at the same time that it's very practical.
Right, it's practical and it's whimsical too.
How about the chair?
Well, the chair, we used a simple solid fabric, the same denim that we used on the chaise, And to give it a little zip, we added a little border in the check, just a 1-inch border.
That ties in with everything else.
Exactly.
Now, the duvet cover seems to be the focus, yet the headboard is just as interesting.
Yeah, the duvet cover, I would say both of them are the focus of the room. And the duvet cover, we used 2 different fabrics. We used a large scale fabric on one side and then a smaller scale check on the other side. And to continue with this rustic feel, we used buttons to attach the 2 sides of the duvet that are made of horn, so it really feels kind of lodgy.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah. And then the headboard is, I think, is sort of like it's reminiscent of a beacon blanket, you know, one of those old Western beacon blankets.
Yes. And is this an easy project in terms of a slipcover?
It's extremely easy. There's no welt, there's no zipper, there are no buttons. All it is, you know, fabric that's been seamed in a couple of places and it slips right on.
Just put it right over the top.
Exactly.
So you can change that easily and clean it.
Exactly.
Through the magic of video effects, let's see how this room would look when you decorate for a lighter, summery look. Now look around and we see a beautiful botanical garden. Dara, what were the changes that you made for this transformation?
Well, we did just 4 simple things. The first thing that we did was we changed the headboard. You remember that it was that colorful bold stripe. Well, we changed it to a simple solid denim that's white, and then we welted it with a great green. It's sort of a spring green. And we used the ties in the same color. And it's really a nice, fresh look. Then we changed the duvet cover. And we chose one of my favorite patterns. It's this Waverly pattern that's a fern print. And it's just green and white, very simple and very classic. And we did the same thing that we did with the last duvet cover, which was line it with a contrasting fabric. And this time, instead of a check, we chose a stripe, and it's a great chartreuse green. It's very punchy and really fresh. And instead of buttons, we decided to do ties.
Such fun.
Then we changed the screen. And this time, instead of changing the actual slipcover, we just reversed the screen so that this time you see the floral print, which is really pretty and very summery.
And it brightens the whole room.
Yes, it does.
And did you do the stool?
We did the footstool, and instead of a tailored slipcover like we had before, we did a little more quirky footstool. And we did a box pleat skirt, and it's kind of fun and it complements the chair.
Oh, it's incredible. It really is. Thank you for sharing all these wonderful decorating ideas with us.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Next, we'll rejoin House Beautiful editor Peggy Kennedy to see what slipcovers can do for a dining room. This dining room is a wonderful mixture of different styles of furniture, styles of slipcover, shapes and sizes of chairs.
Well, there's a reason for that. This chair is taller, but it was a wonderful shape, and it's black lacquer underneath. So we gave it a dress, and we contoured the slipcover to fit the shape. This one is a charming Chippendale chair, so it got a mini skirt with box pleats. This one had a problem on the back, so we totally covered the back.
So here we are with slipcovers covering up problems as well as giving this kind of diversity in the room. We have slipcovers on chairs, on the sofa, and over here we have a slipcover on a table.
Well, it's a great idea for a dining room because often you have that legginess problem. So this makes it softer, and it's the perfect solution. Also, it makes me happy that it's not a round table, but a rectangle or a square. This allows you to do wonderful things like this inverted pleat at the corner with the check lining, and then continue the check as a border for the trim.
Lots of fun. Now we go to the wing chair, and this typically is a piece of a more serious nature. However, this has a whimsical feel.
Well, we wanted it to be lighthearted and use the vermicelli pattern and the scalloped edge to give it a real charm.
Is that difficult to do?
No, what you would do is you would make a paper pattern that you would cut out to fit because you want all the scallops to end at the very corners of the chairs. So it's just a matter of making a pattern.
What's really striking about this room is you've done the entire room in blue,
Right.
And it's very interesting. Everything's different.
Well, I mean, just as you have a collection of plates on the wall and no two plates are alike, it works because the color is tying it all together. You've got a toile, that's one scale, and this is a much larger scale, but it works. And stripes and checks go with everything.
And it's not too busy.
Right.
Thanks, Peggy. I think it's time we found out how to do slipcovers ourselves. When we come back, a step-by-step method for do-it-yourself slipcovers. We are joined by Vivian White from the White Workroom to show us how to make our own slipcovers. Welcome.
How are you
I'm
doing?
really looking forward to this.
Yes, so am I.
Tell us, what is the first thing we need to do?
Well, I would say the first thing that you need to do is to really, take a good look at your chair. First of all, make sure it's structurally sound. There's no wiggly arms and the legs are all strong and everything's, the stuffing is good. And then check your pillows, see if they have enough stuffing in them. Maybe you want to think about putting a little bit more, or maybe they're too soft and you want to change them to something else. And then really go over in your mind how you want the slipcover to look. What room is it going into? Is it a formal room? Is it a casual room? Is it a very feminine kind of a look you're after? And think about those things. Those are very important first steps to think about.
Vivian will take us through the many steps involved in making a slipcover. The first consideration is style. There are many slipcover styles to choose from, and the one you choose should reflect your own personal taste. Remember that for a do-it-yourself project, keeping it simple has many advantages. In thinking about style, keep in mind that a gathered skirt is easier than a pleated one. Welting is an extra step, but worth considering because it helps the slipcover hold its shape and conform to the lines of the chair. The next step is to choose a fabric. No matter what slipcover style you choose, fabric selection is a critical consideration because the choice of fabric will greatly influence how difficult it will be to make your own slipcover. When choosing a fabric, remember, a solid color is easiest to work with because you don't have to match seams, but it will show sewing flaws. A small print is a good choice the first time around because you don't have to worry about matching print design. It's best to avoid a check or a stripe pattern because it means matching vertical and horizontal lines. With a large print containing a definite central motif, you will need to center the design on the chair and sew the pieces together so the design print matches at the seams. When we're buying our fabric, should we allow extra fabric for errors we might make, and in addition, for a fabric like this where you might have where we've got the repeat everywhere?
Absolutely.
We've got to place it?
Yes, because especially in this fabric or in any large print fabric, you have a repeat that, let's say, starts here and here we go, it starts again. So no matter what piece you're using, you need to use this much fabric. It could be a very small piece, but if you're going to be matching, you've got to allow this much fabric. So it does take up a lot more fabric.
The next step is to measure the chair. Okay, so why don't you show us how to measure the chair? Where do we start?
Okay. All right, the first thing I would do is I would get some good measuring implements. A hard tape measure is helpful, but for slipcovers also you will need a soft one, but preferably a new one because they tend to stretch when they get old.
Oh,
they break down a little bit. So you want to make sure all your measurements are accurate, so your size of the pieces will be accurate.
Vivian suggests measuring circumference around the bottom of the chair first. The rule of thumb for gathered skirts is to double this measurement to determine how much fabric to buy. To calculate how much fabric you need, it's important to know how many pieces are required. It's a good idea to use a notebook to keep an inventory list of all the pieces you measure, including inside backing, outside backing, the seat, and the arms. The next step is to trace and cut a muslin pattern. Making a muslin pattern is a good way to check the accuracy of your measurements. In fact, Vivian says it's the best way to get the exact shape of each piece. Fitting the muslin to each part of the chair, draw the outline of each section onto it. This helps in understanding how one piece will need to be joined to another. For seam allowance, don't cut right on the line you have drawn. Allow an additional ½ inch. As you go along, make sure one side of the muslin matches the other by folding it in half to accurately represent the symmetricality of the chair. Once you have all the pieces cut, pin them onto the chair. You are actually building the pattern onto the chair to see how everything goes together before cutting into the fabric. So if we went over a recap of all this, we'd start with the style,
Right.
choice of fabric, measure,
Right.
cut and pin,
Yes.
pin and cut.
Pin and
Really?
cut,
You'd
right.
pin first.
Yeah, I would pin
right?
it on, and then I would draw my lines, and I would cut it out. That would work very nicely.
Okay.
So everything stays in place. It's all
Right.
nice and smooth.
We have our inventory list. We go by this. Keep track of everything.
Keep track of all
Any
your
other,
pieces.
Anything else you want to add?
Well, I would say that for first-time people working, it's also helpful to take these pieces of the muslin and sew them together the way it's going to be. Not
Okay.
just use them as a pattern for cutting, because there may be an error, and you'll try it on, and then you'll see where the errors are, and maybe you need to add a little bit more fabric here, take a little fabric away, and in that way, it takes a little bit longer, but it saves you cutting into this beautiful fabric that
Right.
you bought, and you'll have a beautiful slipcover at the end.
And then I
As a
would
result.
imagine you've got a mock-up for all future
Yes,
slipcovers
that's
in the
true.
same style that you could make if you wanted to mix and match as we've been
Absolutely.
doing.
You want a winter
for different
version
rooms.
and a summer
version.
version.
There you-
Yes, so you
right,
have your pattern
right.
here, and you keep it
Wonderful.
in a box for future use forever and ever.
Terrific. Thank you, Vivian. Next, we're going behind the scenes to the white workroom to see Vivian cut and fit slipcovers. We're here with Vivian White at the White Workroom, where she's going to show us some of the things we need to know to complete our slipcover. Vivian, now that we've learned how to cut and measure a muslin, what's the next step?
Well, the next step is to take your muslin, which I have the back piece, which we worked on, and just check it out. Make sure, again, you've worked it out. It's symmetrical, that the sides match. Also, make sure that you've added in the proper seam allowances where you need them to be. I generally use a ½ inch. I find that's very easy to figure. And also over here, you'll see that I've added this little tail. It's about 2 inches, and this piece is going to be going underneath the cushion and tucking in at the base of the chair so that the springs of the chair are allowed some movement, and then your slipcover is much less apt to tear at these important points where the motion of the chair happens from sitting. And that's basically, you want to check your inventory, go over your list, and make sure that each piece has been checked in this way. You've added in your seam allowances and taken all of that into consideration.
The next step is to cut the fabric. It's probably not an exaggeration to say that for many, cutting into the fabric is a courageous act. But because of all the planning and preparation you've already done, cutting can be approached with confidence. Finding the center line and following it along the print automatically sets you up to go with the grain of the fabric. This will ensure that everything is truly vertical and horizontal. Vivian uses weights to hold the pattern in place while cutting, but she says heavy books work just as well.
This is what you need to do, is just to bite the bullet and go ahead and start to cut.
And you move, do you move?
I can move my weights. Let's say here I've moved over,
Right.
and now I need to anchor this portion down. Just sliding them along the fabric is a very good method of doing it.
When you've completed the cutting, the next step is to make the welting.
One of the most important things is that the welting should be cut on the bias. The bias is created by finding a 45-degree angle through the fabric, working from your vertical and your horizontal grain.
What's the advantage to that?
The advantage is that you end up with a strip of fabric where the grain of the fabric is crossing each other. and it will give you a better fluidity when you finally make the welting. It'll go around curves very smoothly without puckering, and it'll really follow the contours of the sofa quite nicely.
Vivian recommends using standard 1/4-inch upholstery welting. It's available in upholstery shops and fabric stores. Measure 1.5-inch wide strips along the bias of the fabric. This allows enough fabric for seams and to wrap around the circumference of the welting. The next step is to cut the fabric into strips in preparation for sewing. Sewing the fabric and welting together can be intimidating, but not if you follow a few simple steps. First, line up the welting so it flows inside the fabric and follows the center of the strip of fabric. Before sewing the welting, be sure to attach the one-sided zipper foot to your machine. This allows you to stitch right next to the cording. The fabric should wrap around the welting, leaving enough material to sew it to another piece of fabric. When sewing the fabric to the welting, make sure you attach the welting to the pattern side or right side of the fabric. It's best to sew right on top of the stitching you made on the welting, leaving a 1/2-inch seam allowance. It's a good idea to match the thread color to the background of the fabric. That way it's less noticeable. When you join the pieces together, the right sides should face each other. Then stitch on the non-patterned or wrong side using the previous stitching as your guide to ensure exact alignment. For more information about sewing each piece together, refer to the enclosed instruction pamphlet. So when you finished all of the sewing, this is the way it's supposed to look.
Right, we have the slipcover all finished, and let's just slide it onto the chair, and we have our extra fabric down here to tuck it in, so we take up the slack from the spring, and there it is.
Now, what were the steps that you went in when you put together all of the different pieces?
First, I like to start with the seat cushion. And that gives you a good sense of having completed something, and it's like a warm-up. And you can see how nicely this matches at the seam. And then the second thing I do is I make my skirt. I get the full circumference of it done with the hem, and then I take all the pieces that need welting, and I put the welting on the various pieces, and then I assemble the inside arms to the back, and the outside arms to the back of the chair, and then put the inside and the outside of the chair together, and then attach my skirt. And there it is, it's done.
Thank you, Vivian. You certainly have shown us all of the different aspects that are involved if we want to make our own slipcover. And you've made it look so simple.
Thank you.
If you have any further questions, you may refer to the enclosed instruction pamphlet, which has detailed directions and helpful drawings that clearly illustrate each step along the way. Slipcovers are a wonderful decorating idea. They've come a long way from just being protective covers to being attractive decorating solutions. Slipcovers make sense because they allow us to recycle our old furniture and try new ideas. They are practical as well as beautiful. And a special thanks to House Beautiful magazine and Waverly for helping us show you that there is magic in decorating with slipcovers.